What's up YouTube, Mellowetta Matt here. So we are back in the classroom today, and if you remember a couple of weeks back, we did a basic discussion of going through the Harry Battle Stride Battle Premium deck set, and why the cards worked like they did. Well, today we're going to actually be going through upgrades for the Harry Premium Stride deck set, whatever you want to call it, and just give you a few extra additions to add to it. Now, I know the elephant in the room of as of yesterday from me recording this, they announced the History Collection upgrades, and that does change Premium on its head. The fact of obviously the new Grade 3 focus for Harry may end up shifting back towards the old Magia bosses. But I do still want to cover what's coming here for the sheer fact of it's a alternative route. We don't know till we fully test how it's going to work, how the other stuff's going to work. So just getting the information out there. Plus, the History Collection itself isn't dropping for at least a month, if not two. We don't know because we've not obviously received a date for the History Collection yet. But we've got so much more time that we can have a muck around with the Harry stuff. It is much more enjoyable. So let's get started, and where else to start? And the Grade Zeros. So things to pick up within the Grade Zero department. Well, ideally, because we want to swap our Perfect Guards to being Grade 1 Perfect Guards, we end up with some trigger spots. 4 of them to be precise. Because obviously we want to ideally stick with our 3 crits and our 1 over trigger. Not our 3 crits, our 3 stands and our 1 over trigger. We normally want to then fill up with extra crits. You can keep 1 draw in if you want to do 3 of the Grade 1 draws, 1 of the Grade 0 draw. But you want to look into 3 to 4 extra crits. And what options have we got for crits? Well, the first one up is the Exotic Jerker. So Exotic Jerker's got the basic skill of GB1. When your Vanguard attacks, you can put this card from rear guard into soul, draw a card, and give your Vanguard power plus 10,000. Which, all in all, is really nice for the fact of you can use this on the second Vanguard swing that you've swapped into from the Dark Lord Princess. And the reason behind you want to use it for that one is the fact of it's just 1 drive. Normally you've boosted your first Vanguard swing, so this one's going to be a bit weaker, so this plus 10k can give an extra little bit of power. It is GB1 locked, so it is a late game card more than an early game card, so you do have to be careful of that. But then we've also got the early game option, which got a massive buff as of yesterday in the Darkside Swordmaster. So Darkside Swordmaster's got the skill of, when your Vanguard with Harry in its card name attacks, put this card into soul, you draw a card and give yourself power plus 5,000. So very similar to the Exotic Jerker, but the fact of it's currently a 5k base, 10k shield, and only gives 5k in exchange for not being a generation break. But then post update, because it did get announced it is getting an update, the power's increasing to 10k, the shield's increasing to 15k, so those are literally no downside anymore to the Exotic Jerker. And you're gaining the additional skill of, when this card is damage checked, you then draw a card. So the Vanguard 0 card effects, which is honestly makes it instantly better than the Exotic Jerkers for when it's updated. So if you want to play around with it now, for the fact of obviously it's early game, bit of early game numbers, go for it. But once it very much gets to being updated and errated, you will very much want this over Exotic Jerker. But grade triggers aren't the only things in the Grade 0 department. You have starters. So obviously all we've been given so far is the name of Happiness Collector, which can be either the V starter or the G starter. But I would very much recommend that if they do end up giving us the V starter, do look at maybe picking up the G starter as well, because it's really good for the fact of GB1, whenever you call something from Soul, you can draw a card, put this card to soul, draw a card, and soul charge one. You're gaining a +1 to hand and a +2 to soul, all for losing up one rear guard. There's no count blast cost, no soul blast costs. It's really easy to use it multiple times a turn and gain a lot of hand advantage out of it, as well as soul advantage. The other grade 0 starter that's worthwhile looking into is going to be the Cat Knight in High Boots. So Cat Knight in High Boots is got 2 skills. First one being GB1, when your unit's placed on the Vanguard circle, call this card to rearguard circle, and a turn, put it back in soul like with all Magias. Second skill is another Magia skill, and when this card is placed on rearguard from soul, you can choose one of the cards from your soul and call it to rearguard circle. So, just for striding, we're gaining a +2, technically, for no cost whatsoever, because you're getting the Cat Knight for free, and then whatever the Cat Knight calls for free afterward. But because of how it's worded, this works when you re-ride Harry on top of Harry, you'd get this call and another call, which you can then use. The other card you call could be Purple Trapeze, sliding this back into soul, calling something else out, so then when you stride, you get the Cat Knight and High Boots skill again, calling another 2 cards. And this combination doesn't work just from re-riding and striding, because you do have Dark Lord Princess, which when she says, "Oh, end of my battle, I'll re-ride something on the Vanguard circle and move this card to rearguard circle." So you're getting when the new stride's placed, and you finish resolving the Dark Lord Princess, you'll get another activation of Cat Knight and High Boots because something was placed on your Vanguard circle. So it does create a lot more combos with the deck, and honestly, it not having the Forerunner means that you can have it as a starter and it's set up ready, and your opponent can't retire it. And then we move on to grade 1s. And going to address the elephant in the room that we talked about previously, and the last video, and the very first video. Your perfect guard you very much want to get hold of is the Lovely Companion. The Lovely Companion's got the skill of, when this card is retired from the Guardian Circle, if you've got a Vanguard with Harry in its card name, you can Soul Blast 1, use a grade 2 card from your soul, and then call it to Rearguard Circle. End of the turn, put it back into your soul. So people are thinking, well, why is it good? Well, we've got this lovely card called Crescent Moon Juggler, who then says Count Blast 1, Soul Blast 1, Soul Charge 1, and call another card to Rearguard Circle. And that card we call is Tricky Assistant, which then says Count Blast 1, slide this into soul, slide one of your opponent's rearguards into their soul. Oh look, you removed one of their attackers. Such a shame, smiles. But having extra Denial Griffin plays and turning your perfect guards into not stopping one attack but stopping 2 attacks is something really nice to have. Other grade 1 option. With the Magia dolls being there, that's really nice. The other one to address is the Masquerade Bunnies. Now again, we don't know if it's going to be either the V version or the G version included in the deck. But with the way Harry works, we actually do prefer the G version. For the fact of it lets us specifically look for Harry instead of risking a top 5 check for a grade 3 and it not be the Harry, because we do run the Heal Guardians, we run the Tricky Assistant, and the deck does fall apart if we do not ride into Harry. So having the old Masquerade Bunnies that when calling Rearguard Circle, you reveal a grade 3 from your hand and search your deck for a Harry card and add it to your hand is really nice to have. Plus it's also an additional stride fodder, because it does get +2 grade when used to the cost for stride. And final grade 1s to mention that could be worthwhile picking up is the Falsate Performer. So Falsate Performer's got the skill of, when this unit boosts, choose a card in your drop zone, and if your soul does not have a card with the same grade as that card, slide it into your soul. And you're more than likely thinking to yourself, well, why is this useful? Permanent's all about filtering out the soul. what would we not have in our soul that we can utilize from our drop zone? And there's one big card that very much is unique in its grade that you will very rarely find in your soul, and that is the Starry Pop Dragon. Now you're more like thinking, why would you want Starry Pop in your soul? Well, it does come up in matches like with Narukami, as they do have stun bursts that can bind stuff from your drop zone, and don't want your Starry Pops bound because then you losing your whole stage engine and you do end up losing in combat. So having them in your soul after you've done your Lord Pigeon Pop plays is really nice to have. Another use for the Palisade Performer is putting our Prankster Girl in the Mirrorlands that we've guarded with into the soul from the drop zone. Then Prankster Girl will activate, and then go back into deck, grab what we want from deck, put it into soul, and it gets more filtering in the deck, which is really nice to have. But I do know that Palisade Performer is not for everyone, and that's why it's very much recommended. Try it out, see how you feel before you buy into Palisade, because Palisade is getting a very expensive card. Moving on to the grade 2s. And the main grade 2 that I would recommend to a lot of people picking up is the Silverthorn Marionette Lillian. So Lillian's got one main skill that we need to focus on, and that's when this unit is rode on by a unit with only Pale Moon for its clan, you can soul charge one, use a card from your soul, and add it back to your hand. Now, I can see most people thinking, well, why would you want to use this at all? Well, the main reason behind this is the fact that it's a 10k base Vanguard. And when you've got decks that like to rush with Axel decks that are 9k swings, 14k swings, that 10k base turns the 5k guards, 5k guards, and then what would be a 5k guard if it was 9 versus 9 can become a no pass. So having that extra 5k, that extra 1k does help out a lot. Plus the Soul Charge one, adding a card from Soul back to hand is really nice as well. Because you could add your grade 1 that you've used for your ride up back to your hand, then utilise for striding, guarding, calling, so many different combos. Plus if you Soul Charge a trigger, it's really nice to add a trigger back to hand. Outside of that, for grade 2s, there's really not that much, because obviously Lord Pigeon Pop is already at 4 copies. Dancing Princess, 2 to 3, and if we go on a basis of you're picking up 2 of these decks, or you're picking up one, your mate's picking up one, and you're swapping Harry for Night Rose, you'll have a play set, so you won't need anything for them. And then you've also got your 2 Crescent Moon Jugglers, so you've literally got your grade 2s outside of the Lillian. Lillian's a very cheap upgrade to get for this deck. One other thing, obviously, due to this new History Collection meta, one card that's worth picking up is the Rollock. And that's just because the fact of it's an extra perfect guard if you're on grade 2. Yes, it's more designated with the ride downs, but with getting strides going into the opponent's turn 3 play whilst you're still on turn 2, the extra defensive plays can help. The other Thornacre Elementals, the one grade 1 I did forget to mention, which I do apologise for, is the Light Elemental Honolly. And the reason I suggest Honolly is for the fact of, you remember that lovely companion into Crescent Moon Juggler play? Well, you can go the other route with it, and calling out a Light Elemental Honolly instead of the Tricky Assistant. Then Light Elemental Honolly puts your opponent on a timer for how much they can actually attack that turn. Because Honolly does say, in your rear guard's attack a Vanguard, if it's the 5th attack or more, they have to counterblast 1. So having a Honolly that you can call out on the 4th attack means that they've then got to start paying counterblast straight away. So it is a nice tech to actually pick up. Hopefully it gets reprinted soon. but now I'd very much recommend grabbing at least 2. Same with the Rollocks, want at least 2 of those as well. Moving on to the grade 3 and 4 section for the main deck, and there's nothing worth picking up because we've got everything we need within the deck. Because Cookie Assistant, Harry, and Starpot Dragon are your main options. You could look at maybe picking up a tech option of the Silverthorn Beast Tamer Dorian, which does have the skill of end your turn, send all your other rear guards to your soul, draw a card for every 2 cards you send to soul, and then if you send 4 or more, add a Silverthorn grade 3 from your soul to your hand. Second part doesn't matter because obviously we don't have any other Silverthorns, because Dorian is restricted to 1, so you can't use more than 1 of it anyway. But it's just nice for if we've got stuff that we want to protect that wasn't caught by Magia. And this gives us an extra little bit of draw power into the deck, which is a nice thing to actually have. But it's, again, not a mandatory. It's not even expensive for the fact of, obviously, it was a rare to start with. It then got reprinted in the latest clan collection for the Lucia Reverse stuff. Not the latest, the one before. The latest was Sarah. The one before that, where we had Lucia Reverse, Dorian was in there as triple rare reprint. She's very cheap to pick up. So if you want to grab the one just so you've got it for the just in cases, it's definitely worthwhile doing. But then we move on to the pride and joy of Pale Moon, and that's our G-Zone. And we'll start off with the prides first, because it's very much a hot topic to discuss. Now, we are going to work on the basis, as I said earlier, of we've obtained 2 copies of it, whether it's via buying 2 or trading with a mate. So we aren't going to need the extra Dark Lord Princesses, extra Evets, because we'll have 2. You may want a 3rd Dark Lord Princess, but I very much do not believe that you need to go into a 3rd Dark Lord Princess ever. 2 is always going to be enough. If you're going into a 3rd stride after that, it's normally going to end up being either Leontina or Xeroth Dragon. Which, on that note, it is very much worthwhile picking up a Xeroth Dragon. Because obviously it's got the skill of, when it's placed on Vanguard Circle, Counterblast 2. If you do, until the end of your turn, your opponent's Vanguards and Rearguards lose all their abilities, trade and power becomes 1, and if the number of cards in your opponent's damage zone is 4 or more, they then take a damage on top. But they do still perform any effects they get off that damage check. So, this being an alternative win con for the deck, compared to Leontina, is very nice to have. Leontina's really good for those that you want to force multiple cards out of your opponent's hand, but not lose your G-Zone, because one thing to stress, with the Xeroth Dragon, you need to A, guard a card with the same name as your Vanguard, and B, do not kill that turn, you lose your entire G-Zone, both face up and face down. So it is a very much Hail Mary, this is my final push, die situation. So you do need to be very careful. But because of that, it's a very strong effect, because obviously you're turning off your opponent's G-Guards. You're making their grade 1, power 1, so they do end up using a lot of shield to block your attacks. But it's just down to what you feel is better for the situation. If you feel that you can guarantee the kill, Dust is your better play. You've also got to be careful, because obviously if they're on 4 and they take that damage and it's a trigger, they do gain the power, which can obviously, if it's the over trigger, mean that you're ending your turn and if you've gone into Dust, you've lost your entire G-Zone for no reason. So you do need to be very careful with the Xeroth Dragons. It is still a very worthwhile card to pick up. It has had some sporadic reprints, but it is still a fairly expensive card, so you do need to be careful over it. The other stride that was not in the G-Zone that's definitely worthwhile picking up is a copy of Parallel Megatrick Fairfield. So Fairfield's got the skill of Act, Vanguard Circle, once a turn, GB3, Counterblast 2, and choose a card from your soul and your drop zone and put them back to your deck. Then choose a card from your soul and call it your Rearguard Circle. At the end of turn, it gets 10,000 power, +1 critical, and the act of Rearguard Circle, Soul Blast 2, till end of turn. This unit gets 5,000 power and cannot be retired by opponent's card effect. Oh, cannot be chosen, sorry, not even just retired, it's because it cannot be chosen. So, this is really nice. The fact that it lets you turn your Starry Pop Dragon that you could put into Soul via your Falsate last turn into an absolutely massive beat stick that can't be perfect guarded, gains 2 crits, and can't be chosen by opponent's card effects, which reduces so much of what you can actually do to guard this thing, and it actually becomes very scary to deal with. Plus, you've also got the bonus fact of you're returning 2 cards from one from Soul, one from drop back to deck, which is us returning our triggers. So our heals, our crits, our stands, even the basics, so we can actually return our over trigger if we've drawn it and guarded with it, or we've accidentally soul charged it. So it does become very scary to deal with. But those are really the only 2 strides they didn't actually cover in the G-Zone, which is very interesting to have. Then we go into the G-Guards, and that's an even easier option, because they actually covered the main 3 in the Friction Chimera, the Wandering Dragon, and the Card. Only ones you could maybe pick outside of that would be a Don't Harlequin Marger, which is a basic on-play Soul Charge 3 for the deck. So if you feel you want a bit of Soul Charge power, this is a very good one to pick up. As for other options, the other one you could be looking into is the Chainsaw Megatrick Carnival, which then lets you look at the top 3, choose a card from amongst it, put it into your Soul, rest to the bottom of your deck, and if you chose a grade 1 or greater, it gets 5,000 extra shield. Which obviously really nice for us because it lets us filter it in. Plus, if you don't really need the extra 5,000, you can put a Prankster Girl of the Mirrorland. Then Prankster Girl will activate, go back to deck, grab what you want. But I do need to stress, the Generation Break only counts for those on Vanguard and the G-Zone. So if this is a first turn G-Guard, do not get the activation of the GB1 from Prankster Girl, because Guardian Circle is not the Vanguard Circle or the G-Zone. So you do need to be careful of that. One final card that's worth mentioning to pick up would be the Dark Elemental Dismal. Now, Dismal's got the ability of, when it's placed on Guardian Circle, choose one of your opponents, choose one of your rear guards, and cannot be attacked or retired. And why would you want this? Well, this is more for an extra protection for the likes of Connolly. You've called out via your Magia combos just to protect it, and your opponent then can't deal with it, and they're then forced to be locked to 4 attacks. But those are the real upgrades you need. Yes, it's not much in terms of different options you need to grab, but it's still enough to create so much different viability for the deck, which is have. I will stress at the end of this though, Harry, none of this is going to make Harry top tier. There is the blatant problem of, with Harry, you do not have a good early game, and with the current meta being ride downs upon ride downs upon ride downs, you do end up falling so far behind that it's just not worth it. This is mainly being aimed as a guide for those that want to pick up a fun deck that they can have muck around with their friends, and for those that don't actually play ride downs, because honestly, I've chucked this against people that are just which have normal premium games where neither of us are doing the ride down stuff, and it still keeps hold its own, have lots of fun with it. So I will apologise to anyone that is trying to pick this up for a mass competitive deck, because you will not find that in Harry. If you want that within the Pale Moons, I would very much look at Nightmare Doll. Silverthorns are starting to get there, but Harry is very much not going to be meta until they actually deal with the ride downs, which, looking at what they've announced for History Collection, I don't think the ride down's going to be going anywhere. But that is going to be it for this video. If you haven't done so already, please do like and subscribe. It very much does help the channel. And I shall catch you guys in the next video. Bye bye.